Security analysts warn the world is entering its most dangerous period since the Cold War. With military spending surpassing $2.4 trillion, multiple crises are converging in ways historians compare to the months before World War I and the Cuban Missile Crisis. 6 geopolitical moves suggest a wider conflict could ignite this year. We're counting them down, starting with NATO's massive buildup along Europe's eastern frontier. Number 6. NATO's massive eastern expansion has redrawn the map of European security. When Finland joined the alliance on April 4, 2023, it added an 800-mile, about 1,287-kilometer, land border with Russia, instantly transforming what had been a peripheral frontier into a new front line. This development is more than symbolic. It means NATO and Russian border guards now face each other across dense forests and remote checkpoints stretching from the Arctic Circle to the Baltic Sea. The scale of the alliance's forward deployment is unprecedented since the Cold War. In Poland, a multinational NATO battle group now fields approximately 5,000 soldiers, including US, British, and German contingents stationed on a permanent basis. Across the border in Lithuania, the German 41st Mechanized Brigade maintains a force of around 1,200 troops, a presence formalized through bilateral agreements and backed by Germany's €100 billion Zeitenwende modernization plan. Altogether, NATO's forward presence along the Baltic-Polish corridor numbers close to 16,000 troops, rotating on a high readiness cycle and rehearsing rapid response to any incursion. Analysts warn that this dense concentration of forces along a newly extended NATO-Russia border creates a classic tripwire scenario. Any accidental clash or miscalculation could trigger the alliance's Article 5 mutual defense clause. The result is a high-risk flashpoint where routine patrols and military exercises now unfold under the constant shadow of escalation. As the first indicator in this countdown, the eastern expansion marks the shift from post-Cold War optimism to a new era of bloc militarization, setting the stage for the more systemic dangers that follow. Number 5. China's rehearsal of a Taiwan blockade now stands as one of the most acute flashpoints for rapid global escalation. In October 2024, the People's Liberation Army launched Joint Sword 2024B, a drill involving 150 aircraft and dozens of warships, simulating a full-scale quarantine. Nuclear threats have surged back into global politics, echoing the tension of the Cold War, but with new, unpredictable dynamics. In early 2024, satellite imagery confirmed Russian Iskander-M launchers capable of carrying tactical nuclear warheads stationed at Vitebsk North in Belarus. This is the first time since the Soviet collapse that nuclear-capable systems have been placed so close to NATO's eastern flank, putting low-yield warheads within immediate range of Poland, Lithuania, and the Baltics. At the same time, NATO has quietly shifted a significant portion of its B-61 nuclear bombs to forward air bases in Eastern Europe. Now, about 30% of NATO's tactical nuclear arsenal sits within 300 kilometers of Russian territory, erasing the buffer zones that once separated conventional and nuclear forces. Elsewhere, China is building at least 30 new missile silos in Xinjiang and Gansu, aiming to triple its intercontinental ballistic missile stockpile within 5 years. North Korea has launched over 10 solid-fuel ICBMs in the past year, each capable of striking the continental United States with little warning. These moves undermine arms control agreements and lower the threshold for nuclear use in a crisis. The world now faces overlapping nuclear flashpoints, rapid launch arsenals, and ambiguous red lines. The risk of miscalculation or accidental escalation grows, casting a nuclear shadow over every regional conflict and raising the stakes to existential levels. Number 3. Critical shipping routes are now emerging as global flashpoints, with the potential to trigger both economic collapse and military escalation. The Suez Canal, carrying around 12% of world merchandise trade, has always been a vital artery for goods moving between Europe and Asia. In 2024, Egypt completed the Phase 3 expansion, adding a 15-kilometer bypass to increase capacity and vessel draft. This upgrade was meant to ease congestion, but it has also raised the strategic value of the canal, turning it into an even more tempting target for disruption. Recent months have seen a surge in Houthi attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea, forcing insurers to hike premiums and prompting Western navies to escort tankers through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Each incident sends ripples through global supply chains, raising the specter of a sudden, system-wide trade shock. Meanwhile, the Baltic Sea now accounts for about 10% of EU to US trade, a figure that has grown as Black Sea grain routes face blockades. Russian naval patrols in the Baltic have increased by 40% since 2022, raising the risk of confrontations and shipping interceptions, especially near the Gulf of Finland. The economic arteries that sustain modern societies, oil, grain, manufactured goods, are increasingly exposed to military threats, blurring the line between commercial disruption and outright conflict. As one maritime security analyst put it, control over choke points like the Suez and the Baltic is no longer just about trade, it is about who holds the levers in a crisis. The hardening of these routes as potential battle zones marks a dangerous shift, expanding the geography of risk far beyond traditional military theaters and making escalation a truly global affair. Number 2. Governments across Europe are quietly preparing their populations for the possibility of prolonged war. In Sweden, the Civil Contingencies Agency has rolled out a new civil defense handbook, instructing households to maintain emergency kits and download a national alert app. The country now mandates nearly 3,000 kilometers of reinforced underground shelters, ensuring that almost every resident lives within 500 meters of a protected space. Finland's approach is even more extensive. Its national protective shelter system integrates around 2,500 kilometers of bunkers into the fabric of daily life. Schools, transit stations, and sports halls double as blast-resistant shelters, with every citizen guaranteed access within a short walk. These measures aren't relics from the Cold War. They are part of a deliberate modern strategy to harden society against high-intensity conflict. Germany, meanwhile, has committed 100 billion euros through its Zeitenwende modernization plan, with 13 billion euros earmarked specifically for civil defense infrastructure and emergency logistics. This includes the expansion of shelter corridors in major cities and the stockpiling of critical supplies. The scale of these programs signals a profound shift. Governments are no longer treating war as a distant possibility. Instead, they are normalizing the expectation of crisis, embedding resilience into the routines of everyday life. For historians, this mirrors the total society mobilization seen in Europe before 1914, when the boundaries between civilian and military preparation began to blur. The surge in civilian readiness stands as a stark indicator that the risks of escalation are being internalized, not just by militaries, but by entire populations. Rival alliances are no longer loose partnerships. They've become rigid blocks, locking the world into opposing camps with little room for compromise. In 2024, BRICS expanded to include Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Argentina, bringing its membership to 9 and pushing its combined economic power close to that of the G7. This isn't just a symbolic gesture. With these additions, BRICS now commands a major share of global energy reserves and manufacturing, signaling a coordinated challenge to the Western-led system. On the other side, the AUKUS Pact has moved from policy paper to operational reality. Australia, the UK, and the US now share nuclear submarine technology and advanced cyber capabilities, with joint command structures and coordinated patrols in the Indo-Pacific. Trilateral military exercises in 2024 featured new-generation submarines, showing a level of integration not seen since the Cold War. Meanwhile, the Russia-China partnership has become concrete. The Vostok-China 2024 exercise put 150,000 troops into coordinated action across land, sea, and air, with real-time data sharing and logistics stretching from Siberia to the South China Sea. These moves leave little space for back-channel negotiation or shifting allegiances. Each bloc has its own economic rules, military doctrines, and crisis plans. The world now faces a system where a flare-up in one region can trigger a global response, with hardened alliances making de-escalation increasingly difficult. Across all 6 moves, one pattern stands out. Separate flashpoints are fusing into a rigid global system, where alliances and crises interlock. That is what made 1914 so explosive, and today, military spending, hardened blocs, and war readiness echo that same risk. History warns, it is the system, not the spark, that ignites catastrophe.